Great. So, hi everybody. My name is Vincent Zalkind, and I'm with the American Library Association Comics and Graphic Novels Roundtable, and I'm here to do a new to you comic book day with this local shop in Los Angeles, Golden Apple Comics. We have Ryan in shop, the co-owner.
That's me. That's me with my gloves and my mask. My custom coronavirus mask to make sure that I don't infect all the amazing books in here, which I don't think is possible. We've been closed for long enough that nothing here has any viruses on
it. Wonderful. And we also have Joe here with us as well from another spot, but also a vital member of the Golden Apple crew.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm at home, but I'm standing in front of comics paraphernalia, so that is appropriate.
I love it. Yeah, Joe does pretty much all of our ordering. He completely reorganized and did everything for our online component, which has proven to be one of the key issues of us surviving through this pandemic. So, Joe is like a crucial key member of our staff. Yes. And knowledge, a wealth of knowledge when it comes to recommends and reads.
Wonderful. And I'm so excited to hear all of the recommendations today. Before we dive into that, do you want to just give us a little overview about Golden Apple and what the shop is?
Sure. I'd be happy to. I think I'll take this one, right, Joe?
Yeah.
So exactly. So that's why I'm here. I'm not really the recommend guy, but I'm going to recommend some things. So Golden Apple is a shop in Los Angeles. We have celebrated our 40th year in business last year. My father started it in 1979. It's a family business. It's a legacy. I've been very fortunate to sort of grown up around it. We were one of the first shops, just ever. And because of that, uniquely positioned in Los Angeles and in Hollywood, I've gotten to meet amazing talent. Pretty much every creator who's ever, graced a comic book, from Stan Lee and Jack Kirby to local people you may or may not have ever heard of, that we carry their books in our shop. So it's been an amazing ride. And, what we do here on a daily basis, now that the doors are shut down for temporarily, is we've been doing some live sales on Facebook. Joe has been putting together some amazing recommended videos with Nick and editing those together. We're selling these things called mystery boxes. So we're still trying to get comic books to people while they're sheltered at home. We're trying to give them information and a little bit of entertainment. And things like this are so helpful to just spread the word about comic books and how amazing they are and how they're not gone. Just because the comic book shop in your town might be closed, they're probably doing everything they can to reach out to you. So check their social media pages like ours, check live sales, see what kind of things that they got cooking. And then one of these days, we will get some new comic books. And there's been some information on that this week, so we can get to that later. But Golden Apple is an institution. I meet a lot of celebrities. We do a lot of in-store events, which is one of the big things that we do. It's been really frustrating not to have done that. We had to cancel an event with Joe Straczynski, J. Michael Straczynski, that was supposed to happen like literally a week after, the shutdown order came in LA. So we didn't help him launch his new book, but we will when we're going to get into all that. So thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I've tuned into some of your live streams, and I think the last one I tuned in on, someone was completely dressed up as Thor, and it was
Joe, the other Joe that works for me is, he does improv classes for his whole life, and he's an actor and does a lot of stuff, and he's so deeply rooted in these characters as a collector and a reader that he knows the intricacies. I mean, we did one today, no spoiler alert. If you go over to Facebook Live, you can watch that. He played a super obscure character, and we didn't even reveal basically who he was the whole show. But It's pretty obvious by the end of it, but just fun stuff. We're trying to engage fans and readers because everyone's at home, and they're a little bored and they have more time than ever. And hopefully that's more time to read comic books, buy comic books, research what they do want to buy when the stores do reopen, or if they're okay doing mail order. Obviously, we're set up for that. We're, like I said, Joseph really hooked up our online ordering system and our warehouse, and we've just shipping every day, hundreds of packages. It's crazy.
Well, let's use that as a good segue here to hear some recommendations from Joe.
Sure. Yeah. So I
throw it back.
Yeah, there is the starter for the recommendations is going to come from Ryan. He's got a book that we published there at the shop.
Oh, sure. So let's.
So, as Vince, as you're a regular customer here, and so again, thank you for hosting this. And the library, just system in general, is so important to everybody. So as a retailer for so many years, I just thought we needed to practice what we preach. We need to put our money where our mouth is. And we started publishing about almost 2 years ago. And we started with an all ages title, and it's grown. I mean, all these comic books, I don't know if you can see that very well. Let's see. Can we get a better angle on it or something? But I mean, this is This is a lot of comic books, single issues, and then there's 2 trade paperbacks, which I call pocket books because it's an all ages book, and it's called Blastosaurus. I'll give you a little, that's probably a little better. It's called Blastosaurus, and it's about this fun-loving, a little crazy, 6-foot-tall mutant triceratops dinosaur. And he's got two buddies, Richard and Tabitha, or Tabby, if you prefer. And they just go on pretty much crazy adventures. It's created, written, drawn, colored, lettered by one gentleman named Richard Fairgray. And he's been doing this comic book probably for 10 to 15 years of his life. And basically, he models everything after like the Simpsons and Calvin and Hobbes and all his Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And basically, there's just all these wacky monsters, ghosts. In one issue, spoiler alert, they go to Chicken Planet. What's Chicken Planet? Well, it's a planet made entirely of chicken. Trees are made of chicken. Tables are made of chicken. It's wacky. So he really does his best to kind of go outside the realm, make it just fun for all ages, not just little kids, although I think it certainly gravitates towards little kids, which is why we made pocket books. So this is that classic 6x9 size you might be familiar with, especially in your local libraries and comic book stores, like a Raina Taglemeyer book or, one of those like Sister Smile type of formats. So this is the 6x9 pocket book size that we have the collected editions in. And then we've done some specials as well. And we've been so fortunate that last year we were featured in Free Comic Book Day. If you guys don't know what Free Comic Book Day is out there watching, one day a year, it's typically the first Saturday in May. You can go to your local comic book store that's participating, and almost every one of them does in some capacity. And they will literally hand you free comic books. How many depends on each store and what their policies are. There's 50 or so titles every year, and we have been fortunate to be included in that. And because today is April 23rd, it's, next week almost should have been Free Comic Book Day. Would have been May 2nd, I think, was Free Comic Book Day, right? So this is actually hot off the presses here, Vincey. Nobody has a copy of this yet because it's stuck in comic book stores all over the world waiting to be handed out. This is the Richard Fairgray Monster Showcase for Free Comic Book Day 2020. And it's chock full of 3 or 4 amazing stories. There's a Blastosaurus story in here. There's a Black Sand Beach story, which is his new OGN that's also coming out in a couple weeks. And it's just been a lot of fun to publish it. In addition, we do publish a book. We published 5 issues of a series called Adventure Van by Michael McMillan. Michael McMillan, you would know that name and that face if you saw him because he was on True Blood, which he was the Reverend Newland on that show. If you're a little geek out there and you watch some of that True Blood HBO show, and then he's on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which is a funny musical comedy that was aired the last 4 seasons on the network. And so he did that with Ryan Cody, amazing art by Ryan Cody. This is a teen book. So Blastosaurus, we call all ages. And again, we say 8 to 80 or 5 to 80, like on Blastosaurus. This is a teen book. So we're saying, 12 and up. It's like a PG-13 movie and up. There's no like sex or, there's a little bit of violence, but there's really no bad language. But I would say the subject matter is a little bit more, intellectual for like a little kid to really grasp. That's really the only reason for that. Plus, there's a little, nods to this, that, and the other. But basically, those are our main 2 books. We did publish something else. I don't want to take too much time because I know we want to get to Joseph's stuff, but we're pretty proud of this, Golden Apple Books imprint that we have. And we've been putting a lot of eggs into that basket. And then this is the first book we actually did. It was called Dead Future King by David Flores. This was a really cool 3-issue collection of it's a little bit more for like a Walking Dead fan, a little more for indie. This would be like on an Image kind of creator show. If you're into Image books and things like that, you would probably read this. It's about a zombie outbreak in near future London, and I don't want to give any spoilers. It's not Walking Dead. It has a completely different twist, and it's a really interesting read, a really great read. And again, we have this thing where we just like guys who write, draw, color, letter, do the whole thing, soup to nuts. It seems to be a good fit for us. So we do promote a lot of local artists and people who can do it all. So it's been fun to be a publisher and a retailer and wear both hats. It's been a really interesting experience the last 2 years, especially at like Comic-Con and conventions, where we're kind of doing both. We'll have like one side of the booth, we're selling things and doing a game and having fun. And the other side, we're like, oh, here's our creators and buy our new comic books and, support indie creators. So that's what we do here at Golden Apple. It's a little synopsis. And I think Joe's got a bunch of recommended readings from other publishers that we obviously carry all over Golden Apple Comics.
Well, thank you so much for hitting all the audiences there.
Sure.
Let's hear from Joe.
Maybe too much? Sorry.
Oh, no, that was great. And like Ryan was saying, we are fans, I included, of cartoonists that do it all. So there's a lot of those in my stack of recommends as well, writer, artists, and whatnot. I'm going to start with the young folk books and then move older and older until we get to totally inappropriate for children books. So I feel... I don't know how you feel about this as a person in the library world, but I feel like sometimes there's a little bit of rigidity about like what age group a book is for. And some of my favorite books are slated as children's books. And, there's a spectrum. So I'm going to just try to respect the spectrum, but know that all of these are books that I love, regardless of the age determination. So I talked about this a lot. I've already recorded a video about this book for Golden Apple when I started doing the quarantine recommends. But I'm going to touch on again the Hilda series. Hilda is just such a fun character, such a fun, every volume, I think there's either 5 or 6 books now, and every volume has just, it gets better and better with the art. Luke Pearson is a cartoonist second to none at this point. His panel dynamics are super fun. The adventures that Hilda goes on involve a bunch of magical creatures, some of which were Luke's invention, some of which are, maybe something that you might be more familiar with from popular mythology. But Hilda is a cryptozoologist, basically. She studies the magical creatures in the valley in and around where she lives. And over the course of many books, you see her and her single mother living in isolation in the woods, having their house destroyed, and then having to move to the city after that. And then Hilda has to come to terms with city life and realizing that there's still like plenty of magic and nature to be experienced within the city as well. And these two books in particular, these are the most recent two books. They...
Oh no.
I think
Is Joe there?
I think you froze a little, Joe.
Oh no.
One thing I was going to mention until he comes back on is they're kind of in the original format of like a Tintin book, if you're familiar with that, or Asterix. They kind of have that same oversized look and feel to them, as well as kind of same demographic, same kind of readership would do that. Joe, if you can hear us, you might want to refresh or leave meeting and rejoin. I'm not sure exactly technically how to do that, but I can take over for a little bit. I'm not as good of ad-libbing as the other Joe dressed as Thing and Thor, but I think Joe just went off and he's going to come back on. We can go to other recommended readings. Vince, you're a Golden Apple customer. Why don't we give you 5 minutes here, or 2 minutes until Joe comes back on? What are some of your favorite reads that you would recommend? As I know we're going to probably get to that in the third session, but we're here now.
Oh man, it's a very good question, and I'm hesitant to answer because I don't want to possibly cover any ground that Joe might.
That's true.
Because I know that a lot of the books that he recommends and stuff are ones that my wife and I both like. A lot of our pull list has come from recommendations from him.
Right, yeah, you and Caroline have a unique pull list here at Golden Apple. It's not one note, which I love about our customers. We're seeing people, and it's kind of like Joseph, who's about to come back on. There's a range. There are some what would we consider kiddie kind of stuff like Hilda, and there's some really adult stuff like, I don't know if Joe's getting a money shot yet, but it's A to Z of the spectrum of the kind of reads that we're all accustomed to selling and recommending. And Joe's back.
Hey, technical difficulties, but this wouldn't be a Zoom stream without him. So I'm on a different camera in a different location. Wow.
Did you change your shirt too? Are you in the Bahamas now? Where are you?
Yeah, seriously. So what I was saying about the most recent Hilda books is that's the first time where the story has had a cliffhanger in one volume, and then it's continued and resolved in the next one. It's a big story in the comics, which differs slightly from the animated series, because in the books, Hilda was always keeping her monster adventures secret from her mother. And that is the first time that her and her mother have to deal with the fact that she's been lying to her. There's like an emotional moment there, and then her mom is like a part of the adventures, which was like a really cool build-up. In the cartoon, I think they played it a little safer and didn't tell kids to lie to their parents, basically, involved the mom earlier. But I like the emotional payoff in the book. Moving right along, another book from Nobrow, Night Lights. Lorena Alvarez's stories are so good. Her art is incredible. There are 2 books in this series now. Let me just pull up one of these big 2-pagers.
When you went off, I was saying, Joe, that a lot of these books kind of have the same format as like a Tintin or an Asterix.
Oh yeah. These ones up front are like huge hardcovers, obviously. I love this format. It allows so much play on the page. There's so much detail. The art is gorgeous. This particular story, it's a little bit, Hilda is pretty much nonstop fun. This one is also fun, but it has a little bit more edge to it. There's like a thriller aspect for kids. It's not like crazy. But basically, this girl is a really good artist, and it puts out the call to an otherworldly being that can feed off of her art, it seems, and wants to make her the engine for its life and other beings of its ilk. So that obviously doesn't work for her, and there's a story there. But it's very cool. The second book is also very good. Hopefully there will be a lot more of these from Lorena Alvarez. Up next, this was our Pact by Ryan Andrews. This one is coming from First Second Books. It is the most recent book I've read. I just read it last night, and it is fantastic. I don't know if you guys have ever read, there's a book by Jordan Crane called The Clouds Above. That was a very young reader focused all-in-one cartoonist thing where each page is one panel, and it's a boy and his cat skipping school, climbing up a ladder to the clouds, interacting with like a cloud man and a bunch of birds, and it's just like kind of like nonstop laughs and kind of whimsy. This felt a lot like that, but with a lot more grounding, a lot more character. There's more growth. There's quiet moments, and there's adventure. At the heart of it, it's an adventure story featuring two young boys and some of like the creatures that they encounter along the way, like this fisher bear and an alchemist woman in a giant mountaintop that has like weird ravens that do her bidding and cast spells and stuff like that. But it's just these two boys that at the beginning, the pact is referring to, they make a pact with a bunch of kids. They don't all make it to the end, but the pact is to never look back and to never go back home until they see where their town every year has a festival where they put lanterns in the river, and they send them off saying that these lanterns are going to like join up with the stars because the river and the stars line up on this night. And these boys want to see where they actually go. So they're just tracking these lanterns to see where they go. And where they go is actually like gorgeous, beautiful. It's an amazing story. Next up, Superman smashes the Klan. This is rated E for everyone, but this is probably more serious than younger kids can handle. It just is up to you and your family when you want to talk about really serious stuff, because it's dealing with racism, and specifically there's a group in here called the Clan of the Fiery Cross, which is an obvious nod to the Ku Klux Klan. And it's talking about, well, this is, first of all, it's a comic made and inspired by a radio serial that came out in the late 40s or early 50s. And that radio serial in real life had a significant impact on membership and the proliferation of the Ku Klux Klan, which was going strong at the time. And it was a 16-part radio serial where an Asian family moves to Metropolis. The young boy of the family gets into a scuffle with a kid whose uncle ends up being like the Grand Scorpion, is what they call it, of the Clan of the Fiery Cross. And so this just keeps escalating, where this family is targeted again and again by this racist opposition trying to get them to leave town. And Superman continuously inserts himself and saves the day, and makes the kid whose uncle was influencing him to be a bigot himself. Superman is actually this child's hero as well. So Superman's able to counsel him away from hate and get him to come to the side of the angels, basically. Something that Gene Yang does in the comic that the radio serial doesn't do, a couple of things. This has a female protagonist. The young boy on the baseball team has a little sister who is actually the narrator of the story. It's from her perspective the whole time, and Roberta is a fantastic character. Overall, the themes of the book are also explored more thoroughly by presenting Superman as an immigrant himself, and the way that they're able to talk about Superman's evolution of understanding himself and where he came from, that he can be both an American and a Kryptonian, and that he doesn't have to hide who he is. Like in this story, you see him accept and start portraying to people that he can fly and shoot laser beams out of his eyes. So it's like kind of a fun allegory to apply to your own self-love and understanding of self. And
there's 3 volumes so far, right, Joe?
Yeah, there were 3. They were released as 3 different digests, and then they put out a collected edition just before stores had to shut down. So I think we have some copies of the collected edition at the store, as well as some of the single issues, but they're pretty fatty single issues.
Yeah, and if you're wondering who that creator is, he's pretty popular for doing his own indie books like American Born Chinese.
Yeah,
and really award-winning stuff.
Yeah, and speaking of him, and then the art on this, Yurihiru is a duo of Japanese women that just crush it. They also worked with Gene on the Avatar books. They've done a bunch of Marvel work as well with Gwen Poole and stuff. But I've got another Gene Yang book. This is Gene's newest release, Dragon. And now we're moving firmly into the teen zone. At least that's what this is published by Harper Teen, I think. But this is Gene's newest book, and
right there.
Exactly.
You just do it like that.
I figured if we're talking about Gene, let's talk about Gene. This one is also one of the few books on my list that is not fiction. This is a memoir of Gene's perspective. Gene is a teacher at a high school, and this is Gene talking about discovering the stories that are in basketball. And like Gene, I myself do not really care for sports. I'm not very sports oriented. I'm an indoor kid. But Gene is talking about how he keeps hearing the student body talking about the basketball team and how that's the story of the year. And he's like, well, I don't know what I'm going to write my next book about. Maybe I should go meet with the coach. And he goes and meets with the coach, and it, like Superman smashes the Klan, this book is ultimately about finding commonality with other humans, that everyone has a story, and that there's overcoming adversity no matter what walk of life you're taking. The art is great. I mean, it's what you would expect from Gene if you've ever seen American Born Chinese or Boxers and Saints or any of his other work. I haven't finished this one yet, but I'm excited to. I like any comic that can make me think differently, certainly about sports. The Image comic Southern Bastards makes me care about football sometimes, and I really just don't most of the time. So
it also has the coolest dust cover ever. You can't really catch this on Zoom, but it literally is like touching a basketball.
Yeah, it feels like a basketball with the embossment.
It's a full embossed basketball, cover to cover.
It's pretty cool. So now I'm going real off the map with this next recommendation. This is not comics, but it is comics adjacent, and we have a display of these somewhere close to where Ryan is. Dungeons and Dragons is something that everyone should be experiencing during the shelter in place. You can play it on Zoom. You can play it on over the phone if you don't want to get visual for some reason, because it's mostly about verbal storytelling. But instead of taking in somebody else's stories, you can create your own stories. They have these youth-facing, teen-facing books now that are young adventurers series that are a little bit more visual and a little less number crunchy than the traditional volumes. Ryan is holding up the Essentials kit, which is a starter kit that comes with dice, maps, some pre-generated characters, a Dungeon Master screen. It's everything that you would need to play in one box. This is something that I do in my life regularly. I've been playing Zoom D&D. Highly recommend it. The storytelling potential is, to the limit. You can do whatever. It's amazing.
Vincey, do you play D&D or Caroline?
Oh yeah, and I have a big box of dice right here, and a 3D printed dice tower. It's a real D&D house that I live in.
So just happen to be within arm's reach.
We have the kid here, and then we have all the supporting books. Explain the supporting books there, Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, So the gear, you could just go with the essentials kit and you're good for a while. But once you get deeper into it, you might want to like have more creature stats at your disposal, more character types to roll up. Like, I want to be a monk now. Well, you can't be a monk with the essentials kit because it doesn't have like, it doesn't go deep with like 27 different character types. You know, you're getting your basic D&D kind of roll out there. You got your magic user, you've got, you know, a thief, a warrior, that nothing too deep. But if you get like the player's handbooks and some of like the expanded like Volo's guide to the whatever, you're going to get like a lot more variety in the monsters and character types that you can play in combat.
Or the Dungeon Master's Guide. The
DM's guide is something that you'll need as you get more advanced as a DM as well. There's a lot of rules in Dungeons and Dragons, and sometimes you're going to have to, pretty often, you're probably going to have to go consult the glossary and be like, I don't know, how does that interaction resolve? And that's what that's for.
As a novice that doesn't play D&D and probably gets a lot of his references from Stranger Things, do you guys switch off being Dungeon Masters, or is it designated one person always?
I have never been a DM, but in my group of humans that play, there are a couple of DMs that will rotate in, but our main game has been comic book artist Aaron Campbell, who did Infidel, has been the dungeon master of the majority of our games for the last like 6 years.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Shout out to Pornsack.
Yeah, Pornsack can just shout a local who wrote that graphic novel that Aaron illustrated, and Aaron is now illustrating Hellblazer in the Sandman universe umbrella right now, and it's gorgeous and awesome. Moving on to the next teen recommendation. Another book that just came out right before the doors had to lock down, The Fire Never Goes Out by Noelle Stevenson. It's a memoir, which is something that before we started, we were talking, there might be a reader recommendation about, what was it called? Something medicine? Storytelling medicine? What was it been? Graphic medicine. Yeah. So this could be considered that to a certain extent. It definitely deals with Noelle. It's like an 8-year chunk of time of Noelle's like personal diary comics, and in that time period, she came out as, and discovered in herself that she was like, oh yeah, I'm a lesbian. And in that time, she also had her work go from being a webcomic to being published work, then to being the showrunner on Netflix's She-Ra cartoon. And all throughout that, she deals with a lot of anxiety and depression, and these are her kind of bearing her soul on her innermost thoughts and struggles. And she's pretty darn successful, so I think that means something.
Yeah, you would know her from Lumberjanes.
Yeah, she's the co-writer on Lumberjanes, and then the creator and illustrator of Nimona.
Right here.
And this is what this is a lot of in the this new book. They're not necessarily full comics like Nimona, like those panels that you see there. They're more like illustrated journal entries with little spot illustrations and stuff like that. But it's quite good, and Noelle's awesome. Last up for
every book so far at my disposal, Joe.
That's right. Yes, all of these so far. I tried to pick almost exclusively things that we had in the store, also, so that if you wanted to order from us, you can.
That makes sense. Where would they go to do that? GoldenAppleComics.com, of course.
Yeah, GoldenAppleComics.com would be a great resource for everything, except for this next book that I'm about to hold up. We don't have this. Diamond doesn't have a lot of these volumes in stock anymore, but they're available. They're online. You can find them. Last Man is a European graphic novel series that First Second translated 6 volumes of. I'll talk about the content in a second, but I will say as a warning, there are 12 volumes of this series, and volumes 7 through 12 may never get translated. Silver lining, I found fan translations on the Last Man Reddit of volume 7 through, I think they're up to 11, but they're still, now that everybody's sheltering in place, they're going a little bit faster on the translation. So very soon I'll be able to finish reading this epic saga. It is, I think, for fans of like Dragon Ball Z meets Cowboy Bebop with a multi-dimensional twist.
Great.
So is it manga, Joe? Is it like considered manga?
It's manga in a way.
Right to left?
No, it reads left to right because it's European manga.
Got it.
It's a French artist or a French team of artists, Bastien Vives, Balak, and Saint-Laville. I don't know that guy, but Bastien Vives is a really great. He does a lot of like indie graphic novels that are about like slice of life love stories and that kind of thing. Balak is weirder. He's got some adult cartoons on the internet that I would, if you want to see some weird stuff, look up Balak later, Balak. But Last Man is where they come together to do, I think, their best work that any of them have ever done is all together. So the frame of the story is that this is a fight book, kind of like a Dragon Ball Z, and there's a tournament. But there's in it, when you start reading volume 1, you realize there's a lot of implied backstory. That's because there's a prequel animated series by the same name, Last Man. It's watchable on, I think VRV is the name of the streaming service. But it is like 26 10-minute episodes. That's the mood of those and the pacing and the way that the fight choreography is what really reminds me of Cowboy Bebop. Also, the lead character, Richard Aldana, is kind of like a Spike Spiegel, kind of Han Solo jerk that you love kind of thing. He, in this series, starts out in like a fantasy landscape, but he clearly has some stuff like a Zippo lighter and stuff where he came from Earth. And eventually in the comics, and then if you watch the prequel, you see how this happens, but there's like a gateway between worlds that in the prequel series, Richard is in our world, and in the comic series, it starts with him in the fantasy landscape. And it's epic and amazing, and I can't recommend it enough, other than with that caveat that you're going to have to probably track those translations.
You can come to Golden Apple and buy Why the Last Man.
Yes, Why the Last
Man.
Man.
Buy Last Man.
And we got a lot of
it. Has a monkey.
Yes. Yeah.
Close enough.
So up next, I didn't have the actual comic here, but I've got the art of Nausicaa of Valley of the Wind. So Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind is something I could say is probably the best comic book ever created. It's the only comic that was ever drawn by Hayao Miyazaki, the animator known for Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke and Ponyo and a number of other things, Totoro. This story is about the princess of a small kingdom on a post-apocalyptic Earth with a toxic ecological system who becomes involved in a war between kingdoms while an environmental disaster threatens humankind. So it too is epic. It is fantasy for sure, but it's also like post-apocalyptic Earth. And there's these giant insects, and it's just great. Ryan is going to hold up.
They come in two versions, right? So there's the soft cover single books, but your favorite that you recommend to everybody, Joe, is this bad boy, right? It's very heavy.
Yes, that's like the crown jewel of many a comic book fan's collection is the Nausicaa 2 hardcover box set. It's so pretty and it's all nicely presented. It comes with a poster. Oh, it's so good.
Cased.
Yeah.
And a good paperweight at that, too.
Oh, yeah. And it's actually printed larger than the original. American translations came on digest size. This is bigger than regular graphic novel size. It's gorgeous. And Hayao Miyazaki's command of the line and character designs and like the political intrigue involved in this war between nation states is amazing. And ultimately it has a very good message of ecological like purity and trying to like preserve the earth and our resources.
Now, is the hardcover in color or is everything in black and white?
There are sections that are in color, like in a lot of mangas. You'll get the first story, even in Scott Pilgrim, a couple volumes at first before were all colored. They had like the first like 5-10 pages in color. You get that same treatment with Nausicaa, where there's like a little burst of color here and there, but it's 99% black and white. Yeah.
Great.
So can't recommend that enough. I would put that right up against Saga or any of your other like best of the best. It's right there. Next, I don't have the book here, but I did a print off of Coyote Dog Girl by Lisa Hannawalt.
I don't think we have that here.
We do. We do. It's on the indie shelf next to the other female authors. But Coyote Dog Girl is Lisa Hannawalt's newest creation. I'm actually wearing a Lisa Hannawalt designed shirt featuring a character from the Tuca and Birdie show that she created.
3 copies, Joe. So the first 3 callers.
Yeah.
323-658-6047. This could be yours.
It's true. It's a Western. Lisa Hannawalt is a big fan of horses and equestrian sports in general. She goes riding even now during the apocalypse times. She's been going to take care of her horse and go riding. You can see it on her Instagram. But that allows her a very special lens to tell a non-traditional Western story. The art and the story are very comedic a lot of the time, non-traditional visual approaches to panel dynamics, a lot of not even necessarily panels, just like drawings next to each other. But it's like very
color, painted, fully painted.
Yeah, all watercolor. At times it's kind of got like a psychedelic vibe to it. But ultimately, something that she didn't want to, that's one of my favorite pages in the whole book. I won't repeat what it says on the page, but it's a naughty word.
Oh, bring it back a little bit, Vince. Sorry. You have an adult section at your library.
Yeah. This
it's
is
not like
to like adult recommendations now, right?
Yeah, we're firmly in adult recommendations.
Yes.
Yeah. And like I would say, like we started that with Nausicaa, but Nausicaa could be a teen book as well. Like I said, these are all on a spectrum. Coyote Dog Girl, there's a couple of bad words. There's a trigger warning for a sexual assault scene that is kind of surprising. That happens later in the book. That's like an origin story moment. Like, how did she get out into the wilderness? Like, why are these people chasing her? Because she's on the run. And you get to see what happened. And it's like a really like stirring and grounding, poignant moment in an otherwise very joyful and erratic Western. And so it's interesting how many levels it works on. It's like super good. And I would also recommend her other books. This is her first consistent narrative where it's just one story for the whole book. But she previously published 2 books, My Dirty Dumb Mind and Hot Dog Taste Test, that are journal comics. And that's where like she first released the characters of Tuca and Birdie. They appeared in Hot Dog Taste Test. And then from there, they were developed into like an animated show for Netflix. But mostly those books are just kind of like weird thought experiments or like journal entries. Highly recommend all of her work, though.
I mean, I love all of her stuff.
Have you read her books at all?
Yeah, I mean, I read Coyote Dog Girl, and I loved it, and I like was aware of who she was, and then I moved into like Hot Dog Taste Test, and like it's just, man, like you said, like the way that she plays with the page structure and like the color work and stuff, it rules. Yeah,
I was my first exposure to her, well, and everybody probably is more familiar with her artistic contribution to BoJack Horseman. BoJack was never really my thing. Like, I thought visually it was fine, but I'm more into her storytelling aesthetic as well. I think the way she approaches comedy and character is very different than BoJack. It's a lot, it has more heart. I like that.
Yeah.
So 2 more.
Sure. Great.
The next one is Bottom Feeders by Ezra Clayton Daniels and Ben Passmore. I'm going to read the blurb on the back for efficiency. Once a thriving working-class neighborhood on Chicago's South Side, the Bottom Yards is now the definition of urban blight. When an aspiring fashion designer and her image-obsessed BFF descend upon the hood in search of cheap rent, they discover something far more seductive and deadly. Gentrification and body horror collide in this brutal satire from the award-winning creators of Upgrade Soul and Your Black Friend. If you haven't read Upgrade Soul or Your Black Friend, those are two books that should be on your read list. They are both super good. Your Black Friend is just advisory about race relationships and how even white allies can step on a lot of toes, and like what that can be from like a mixed race person of color's perspective. And Ben Passmore's cartooning is fantastic. His color choices are always electric, and that is no different. Yes, Upgrade Soul. Ezra Clayton Daniels, that is like a hard sci-fi exploration on identity, and that's a body horror of its own. There, Ryan's holding up a page where a potato-looking person is sitting next to a phone. That's like a body that a human has been injected to. It's like science experiments gone awry, and what it means to be alive, basically. Super good. Bottom feeders. It looks like your general Ben Passmore art with the bright, vibrant colors and like interesting color choices. But they live in this weird industrial-looking complex building that they start to discover weird things, sounds from in the walls, and then like a secret observation room, and just like it gets weirder and weirder until it just becomes like a straight up survival horror story by the end. But all the while, it has this lens of gentrification and race relations as well. It's awesome. Have you read that one, Vincey?
Oh yeah, I've read that and I love it. I try to put it on display when I can. Our copy, I know, is very well loved, but it's great. I love that book. I love his work, and Upgrade Soul as well. I mean, really good stuff. And Your Black Friend. I mean, there's so many books you listed in like a row that are related to that are just some of my favorite reads from the past year.
Totally. Yeah, we have them all shelved next to each other. I'm trying to curate in our indie section themes, because there's like a spotlight indie area that's not alphabetical. It's like, can you figure out what the organization is?
No, I can't.
I'm doing like right now we've got one shelf that's all female creators that are awesome indie stars to me, whether or not they're known household names. And then under that, there's a shelf that is like half of the shelf is all indie creators that are either writing about Black issues or that are Black illustrators and writers themselves. So I'm just trying to like, I don't want to endorse segregation, but it kind of is helpful to readers that are looking for a particular flavor, or you know, like we have people come in and they're like, do you have anything about like Black women? And now it's easier for even a casual browser to see like, oh, there's a bunch of like Black female stories right next to each other, you know, whether.
I was gonna say, yeah, own voices is such a very powerful thing to have on display, whether it's in a shop, a library, wherever. I mean, really.
And the hand-drawn signs really sell it, Joseph. Is that Alex or you? Who drew those?
Nick has drawn some, like in the kids section, like the as seen on TV and the hashtag Goodreads and stuff. We're just being silly with the signs sometimes, but the indie section could use more hand draw signs to indicate like
we have some time on our hands, so we're going to work on that.
Wonderful. Definitely. Well, I think we've got enough time for one more adult recommendation if you got one.
And I've got one left. This is something I also talked about in a Golden Apple video, but if you hadn't seen that, then it's new to you, maybe. Titania is by Fabian Bellman and Kara Skellett. Kara Skellett is an art team, I think it's husband and wife. And this is another European graphic novel. They did another book that is probably better well known called Beautiful Darkness. Beautiful Darkness is amazing and dark, as the title might suggest. But I chose Titania over Beautiful Darkness because I think the art is just a little bit better. Beautiful Darkness, the strength of it, a lot of the strength of it is the art is gorgeous, but it also gives you a feeling of that you're, oh, this is a children's book. It looks like a children's narrative, but then the content is just, there's no good characters in it. They're all very one-dimensional, horrible, horrible people, and it's like an indictment of the worst parts of humanity. So Tanya does not rely on that visual dissonance. It's a straight adventure story that's kind of like Journey to the Center of the Earth. It's about a woman and an expedition team that go spelunking, looking for her brother, who is a scientist that his previous expedition had gone missing. And he was trying to prove the existence of hell, and somehow using Darwin's theory of evolution to do so. So this book is her trying to track down her brother, going deeper and deeper, finding weird subterranean civilizations, strange creatures, and I don't want to spoil anything, but it's last on my list because I saved the best for last. Titania is just one of the best, most beautiful graphic novels out there. Carrascoa is a wonderful art team. They've done collaborations with other authors other than Fabian Bellman, but I think the two with Fabian Bellman are probably the two greatest.
Wonderful. Well, I love this. There's some of those in there that I don't know, and so now I'm going to have to go looking up a lot of these. So thank you.
I mean, this is the personal shopping treatment you get when you go to, your local comic book store, especially Golden Apple, when you get guys like Joseph working here, and they just have this wealth of knowledge, and pretty much we can find something for everybody. I mean, notice I didn't even see a superhero in any of those, and I know Joe.
Just Superman. Just one.
Oh yeah, that's right, the Superman book. But there's tons of superhero stuff that he loves, and basically from all ages to really, adult line. There's something for everybody out here. The way we do it, just if I can plug for 1 second, you can either email us, or you can go to our website, or you can call us. That's the status of things right now. The email is orders@goldenapplecomics.com, as plural, orders, and our phone number is 658-6047. As in the 323 area code, 658-6047. We're basically answering the phone 12 to 5 every single day. And then you can always go to our website, goldenapplecomics.com. You might see some of these, you might not. You can always email us through the website, email us at orders@goldenapplecomics, and we can personal shop for you. We can get stuff. You can say, hey, I was watching this show, or I watched one of Joe's videos, and you have this great book, can I get that? And the answer is absolutely yes. And then, as always, we have our own published stuff. We have Dead Future King we talked about. We have Adventure Band, and we have Blastosaurus with the upcoming Free Comic Book Day free issue that will be coming up. I don't have an update on Free Comic Book Day yet, because even though I'm a publisher, as one of the silver sponsors, they basically have said, hold off. It's not happening May 2nd, obviously, because of all that's going on, but it will be rescheduled. That you can bet on. Don't know when that's going to be. I can tell you that the book has been printed. I can also tell you it's also in comic book shops everywhere around the world, because we were one of the only publishers that got shipped on May 25th from Diamond. March 25th from Diamond. In the very last shipment from Diamond, all retailers did receive their copies, so it's sitting in stores waiting to be given to you. So one of these days, you will be able to go into a comic store, you'll be able to peruse racks and get free comics like that. But until then, please call us, please email us, please visit our website, check out our live streams on our social media pages like this, and Zoom meetings, and go to your local libraries when you can do that as well. Right, Vince?
Yeah, your local libraries, I'm sure, whether it's a library in California or really anywhere, I'm sure that they've got a wealth of great online resources you can use. I know there's places like Hoopla that have lots of great comics on them too. So really, I mean, now's a great time to dig into comics, especially if you're new to them. There's so much to dig into. So thank you both so much for joining us. This was really great. And like I said, I'm excited for the full list to be put up later so that I can dig into some of these ones that I'm unfamiliar with.
Yeah, I'm happy to expose you to some new stuff as well. And like Ryan said, I love superheroes. I just thought let's go off the beaten path a little bit. The last week of recommendations I watched, and I was like, oh, I would have talked about Immortal Hulk. Oh, I would have talked about, like, they talked about a lot of my favorite stuff in the mainstream. So let's dig deeper, I thought.
Absolutely, and that's the thing about your local comic book shop as well as Golden Apple, that we just carry a little bit of everything for all ages, for all themes. I mean, we have customers who are into very specific genres, and we have a little bit of everything. And there isn't a single person who we couldn't find something for, because they're not all about superheroes, and they're not all about weird, obscure books. There's everything in between. So basically, just keep reading and keep enjoying, and your local comic book store will be back open at some point, especially here at Golden Apple, when everything is safe. We want to make sure that's important. So we're here for you if you need us while you're sheltered at home.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again so much for this. It was a true blast to get to see you guys.
Yeah, good to see you, Vincent.
Thank you.
We hope to see you in Caroline in person one of these days.
Oh, we hope so too. We miss you guys.
All right. Well, thanks again. Thanks for hosting us, and goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Read comics.